Hunt Down the Freeman is the worst fan game. Sort of. I'll explain why I'm saying sort of in a bit, but the line, Hunt Down the Freeman is the worst game, has went around so many times that even the developers have embraced it and made achievements mocking their own game. Astonishing. It's pretty much been getting hated on since it was released. I wouldn't be surprised if it was even before it was released. And with the amount of bugs it has, it's kind of deserving of most of it. So is this video also going to be about why it's so bad? Yes, but also a little bit of no. Mostly yes though. But before I do what everyone else would do and vent about everything they don't like about this game, I want to briefly talk about the development of it. And I think it can be perfectly summarized in a single picture that this Steam user happened to make 4 years ago. And from this single photo, you can probably reasonably extrapolate the rest. So this game started out as a Half-Life 2 mod, which makes sense, around 2016 when a demo was released, and then later released in 2018. And there were a ton of scandals about its development, like the developers being accused of stealing assets without permission, to a weapon model apparently made with 2 billion polygons almost frying the animator's computer. That must have been fun. So from all that, you would assume the developers would either stop the project or actually get a working brain and do it properly. But no, they released the game in its broken state, and here we are. So you would also assume that after almost 5 years, they would fix up their game that they're actually selling for $10. Nope. When I finally decided to infect my computer and install this game for the first time a few months ago, I was fully expecting to be met with more bugs than Australia has. So I installed the build of the game that you currently get when you do install it. Take note of that sentence. All the stuff I'm going to point out are based on that. So let's start with the fact that this game takes up almost 40 gigabytes of space. After playing it, I'm really not sure what in this game takes up 40 gigabytes. I haven't heard of any Valve game or fan-made game take up that much space. Black Mesa looks like it has a lot more packed in and it takes up less than 30. Let's follow that up with the fact that even before you load it up, the developers acknowledge that co-op is broken. I'm not even going to try it, so I'll just take their word for it. We're already 2 downsides in and we haven't even loaded up the game. The main menu, surprisingly, I actually think it's pretty good. It still emulates the traditional Half-Life 2 main menu, but stylizes it a bit. It's not a drastic change like Black Mesa's menu. Oh, and the default save state picture is the main character dabbing by the looks of it. Awesome. They do have a training course here, and I think just going through that will give you a great idea of how the rest of this game is. You load it up and you can immediately tell it just copies opposing force on this one. And I don't know if it's just me, but something about the area just looks odd. I can't really point out what though. When the other trainees are saying yes sir, their mouths don't move at all. And when the drill instructor asks a question, they don't say anything, but he still responds as if they did say something. All in the first 5 minutes. Later, when you learn about basic movement, you'll notice some new stuff. There's proning now. I really don't see the purpose. Crouching is just fine, but okay. There's also parkour mode to climb higher ledges or move along ledges. And I gotta say, the animations are pretty good. Right after that, you're in a shooting range, but the instructor doesn't tell you what to do. I assume this is where you learn how to use other weapons because they're in the lockers here. But instead, I'm just stuck here because the instructor hasn't said anything to trigger the next stage. So because I was stuck, I had to quit out of that. That was just the training course. When I said this will give you a great idea of how the rest of this game is, I'm not kidding. So let's start the actual game. The first thing you'll notice is that the game starts with a cutscene. Now, I'm not one to judge whether cutscenes are a good or bad thing, but I can say that they are extremely out of place in this game. For one, the idea of Valve's philosophy is that the game should never take control away from the player. That's why you don't see cutscenes in any of their games. That way, the player feels like they're a part of the world and not just watching a movie. And so since this is supposed to take place within Half-Life, you know, a Valve thing, it would have made a lot more sense for there to not be cutscenes. But let's say the developers wanted to add them on purpose. Okay, that's fine. The cutscenes look drastically different from the actual game. The cutscenes themselves look actually really good, but the playable game looks really off compared to them. You can see it right after the first cutscene, the starting area looks so much more different. And cutscenes happen all the time, seemingly at random times as well. So they're either sudden or they fade in from black, which looks even more odd. And sometimes a cutscene will end in one place and then you're in a completely different place in time. What the hell, Royal Rudius Entertainment? But enough about the parts where you don't play. How about the parts where you do play? Well, they added new movement mechanics. You can prone, climb walls, and roll. However, they're rarely used in the game. These mechanics are more of a nuisance because you have to activate parkour mode and holster your gun to be able to climb. You know, just having crouching works perfectly fine. Oh, and climbing pipes takes forever. If you have to climb one, you can honestly just put something on the W key, and then you can go to the gym for an hour, come back to eat a nice meal, and then go take a nap for an hour, and when you finally come back to the game, you'll have climbed half the way up.
Really?
They added an inventory system in the game. It looks alright, not gonna lie, but it's also kind of pointless. You know, this system worked just fine as well, and it was easier. Might I also mention that if you want to turn on night vision, you have to hold the goggles in your hand because they're an item you can hold, and then put it on. In the controls, there's a button to just turn on night vision, but it doesn't work. The weapons themselves are actually good. They look high quality, but not 2 billion polygon quality. You're able to aim down sights, which is also pointless because 1, it looks kind of awful, and 2, you can just hipfire everything like you do in Half-Life. So in all, they tried to add some new stuff, but it either doesn't fit in this kind of game, or it's pointless and just a hassle instead. Oh, but it doesn't stop there. The level design in this game is impeccably bad. I mean, just look at this. A lot of these levels are empty for some reason. Like, look at this tunnel. Nothing here. If this was a real train station, there would be shops around here, maybe more tunnels, a few trash cans. I don't know, just something. At least the devs put in this decal. Love it. Meanwhile, the first outside area is full of stuff. Granted, none of these things here are props, and they're just solid objects, but still. Some areas like this mountain section is way too big. 90% of your time here is just running to the next place. This sewers area looks perfect for an airboat, but no, you have to run through this while a gunship chases you. Later you're in this area where 100 headcrab canisters fly in, and the only way to get out is to wait for this one to break open the tunnel. The fidelity of these levels is truly something to witness. That too can range from decent to absolutely abhorred. This mountain area is peak level design IMO. They look just like real mountains, to scale as well. Made with Unity. Same with this skybox. This might go down as the best looking game of all time. Step aside, God of War Ragnarok. The true God is here. The game also has a problem with not giving you any hints to where you have to go. You'll have to look around every corner to find the way, and some of these maps are huge, so it also takes a while. And you'll also remember about the climbing feature, so you'll be smashing your face into every wall to see if you can climb it, only to find out that you can't, making you go smash your face into a wall in real life. Take this office area. There are 0 indicators to where you should go. I would estimate that there are about 100 doors in here, and 80% of them you can't open. The only piece of guidance is this flare that tells you where the next cutscene starts. Or this part in the ship. You're just put here with no idea of what to do. So you have to wander around this big ship until you find the area that starts the cutscene. Or perhaps the worst offender, this area. This area in the docks has it all. You're just put here with no idea of what you're supposed to do. There are no indicators of where you're supposed to go. It's a huge area, so it takes forever to run around and you can get lost. And there are enemies. By far the next dumbest thing I've seen is this part. In this cutscene, this guy says to hang on for a little bit while he does something. You would think it cuts to when he comes back, but no, he actually meant it. You have to stand in this room for almost a whole minute doing absolutely nothing until the next cutscene starts. What the fuck? There's this section with quite possibly the stupidest puzzle ever. The floor in this house is cracked, so you know you have to destroy it. But grenades don't work. Shooting it doesn't work, 360 no-scoping it doesn't even work. You have to go upstairs and stand on it so it falls down and breaks the floor. It's not intuitive and kind of dumb, so I'll give it a 10 out of 10. Some other levels are completely broken. This train station area is supposed to have a large fight until the train doors open, but for me, none of that happened. There were no enemies and the train doors never opened, so that meant I was soft-locked. I'm not sure what's supposed to trigger the doors opening, but that clearly broke, so I had to no-clip into the train, only to find out the level transition wasn't there, so I had to manually load the next map with the console. Now this should be kind of obvious, but if I have to cheat or load the next map myself in order to progress, then the game is not good. Also, if I have to go running around to figure out where to go in every level, then the game is not good. Overall, level design is trash. The voice acting is one of the prominent things in this game. The developers though thought it would be an amazing idea to have other YouTubers voice act the characters. And not just side characters, no, the main characters. One of the developers made a list of all the voice actors, so you can take a look. Now, I don't recognize all the people here, so I don't know if this list is accurate, but it's the closest thing I have. And not all of these people are professional voice actors, so the quality of the dialogue can vary. The main protagonist is voiced really well because his voice actor is an actual professional. On the other hand, there's Larry, who sounds crystal clear despite wearing a mask. Larry's my favorite character, by the way.
I never voted for this guy.
But the other thing is that it could be odd hearing someone else that you know as another character. It can be hard to take them so seriously. Not like you can take this game seriously in the first place. But now remember near the beginning of this video when I said this? So I installed the build of the game that you currently get when you do install it. Well, if you go to the beta section on Steam, there are a few different builds. One of them is the original release build of the game from 2018. So that implies that the version I was talking about this whole time was an updated one. And indeed it was. What I've shown you thus far has been the improved version of the game. improved. All the past videos you've seen on this game have specifically been shaming on this build. I installed it and wow, it certainly is worse. Sort of. I say sort of again because in this build you can actually, finish the tutorial and not get softlocked. And that previous train station part actually works as well. But that's the only good part. Everything else isn't. A majority of the game is just the same, but with some minor inconveniences. Like this elevator now just looks awful. Both the weird textures and how blocky everything looks as if it was made in Minecraft. The office part where you need to use the night vision goggles is now too bright, so you don't even need to use the night vision. The night vision actually makes it worse. In this part with about 100 claymores, there's zero indication for how to navigate it, so you'll have to trial and error your way through it because any small step can set them off and destroy the planet. In the newer build, they put wires to tell you where to go, which is a big improvement. Those are the little things. Some bigger things like the beginning hospital area is much different. This is where that moment where the guy takes the medkit happens. But perhaps the biggest thing that I'm glad they fixed in the current build is the new Alaska chapter. The release build version of this chapter has got to be one of the worst video game levels I've ever played in my life. I'm sure a lot of previous videos critiquing this game had a lot to say about this part. First of all, it's so unnecessarily long, like 30 minutes long. But even worse is that the maps are way too large for no reason. Like the first half you just walk through a snowy mountain with nothing happening for a whole 5 minutes. Seriously. And if you dare go the wrong way, a sudden blizzard will wipe you away from existence. Then when you do have to do something different like climbing, it's also broken. Might I also point out that I've died a few times to the antlions that appear here. Now before you spam skill issue in the comments, let me put into context that their attack has a much farther range from yours. So unless you waste all your ammo on antlions, you'll almost always trade damage with them. Oh, f*** off. There's a section where you have to avoid these snipers, and it's relatively easy up until this specific part where there's one so close to you that it's nearly impossible to avoid them. I spent like 10 minutes dying over and over again at this part until I gave up and no-clipped past him. Even worse level design, but thankfully I didn't fall into the backrooms. Then there's this part where you have to avoid these spotlights. These spotlights suck because if they do see you, they ask Zeus to strike you down into dust from the heavens above. I didn't play the rest of the game because I honestly just wanted to end my suffering after that Alaska chapter, so I don't know if there were other huge differences. That was the release build, but remember that there were two others. The April Fool's Update one, from what I can tell, changes absolutely nothing, so it's literally a complete joke. Then there's the OWF build. From what I've heard, this build is supposed to try to fix the game. Bold move. I only played a little bit and there wasn't much different that I noticed at least. In the tutorial, they at least give some description to how to properly do the new movement, and the button to turn on night vision actually works. Wow. None of these builds, however, address the real problem. The game is called Hunt Down the Freeman, but Freeman never actually appears in the game. He's in the cover art, but not in the game. Are you I should also mention that there was something called the Mesa build, which also had the goal of fixing this game. Although from what I've read, it's been discontinued because OWF is more up to date. But when I looked into what the Mesa build changed, a lot of those changes were present in the default build that I first played. So maybe I'm wrong, but it looks to be that the Mesa build is the one you install by default now. So this is why the title says that this is the worst game, sort of. Because while the game still is absolutely utter trash, it's surprising to say that there was a time where this was even worse. But while the current game has a lot of things that make it objectively better than it was originally, there's still the fundamental issue with how the gameplay and these levels are planned out that make it almost impossible to turn this game into a good one. Plus, they still managed to screw up crucial parts that make it impossible to progress. So I'm really not sure what to say about this game. Is it really better or worse? There's way more quality of life improvements, but you still have to cheat to progress. But we can all agree on one thing. This game should not have released like this. They should have either scrapped it or completely reworked it. Hopefully the studio learned from this and won't make the same mistakes. The only good thing so far is that it set the bar for quality so low that I don't think anything else will make me more disappointed than this. So thank you, Hunt Down the Freeman. You've given me a new vision for game design. But anyways, bye.